Nicholas wasn't racing against paperwork, he was racing against history. Hello, my friends, I'm Amber Joy. Imagine sitting quietly in the audience of a television show with absolutely no idea why you've been invited. The host begins telling the story of a man who rescued hundreds of children before World War II. Then she asks one simple question. If anyone here owes their life to Nicholas Winton, would you please stand? One person stands, then another, then another. Within seconds, people are standing all around the audience, while one quiet man sitting in the audience looks around. Some are crying, some are smiling through tears. Every one of them is alive because of him. What's even more remarkable is that almost no one knew what he had done. Not his wife, not his children, not even his closest friends. For nearly 50 years, his greatest act of courage remained a secret. This is the true story of Nicholas Winton. In December of 1938, 29-year-old Nicholas Winton thought he was leaving for a skiing vacation. His bags were packed, his plans were made, and he was looking forward to a few relaxing days away. Then a friend called him for Prague with an unexpected request. He says, "Don't go skiing." He said, "Come here instead. You need to see what's happening." Nicholas canceled his vacation and boarded a train to Prague, never imagining that one decision would save 669 children and change thousands of lives for generations to come. When Nicholas arrived in Prague, he wasn't greeted by ski slopes or mountain lodges. He was greeted by fear. Families who had fled Nazi Germany and Austria were crowded into refugee camps with little more than the clothes they were wearing. Parents could see what was coming. Adolf Hitler's influence was spreading across Europe, and they feared it wouldn't be long before their children were trapped with no way out. It was the children Nicholas couldn't stop thinking about. Some were laughing and playing, too young to understand the dangers surrounding them. Others clung tightly to their mothers, sensing that something was terribly wrong. Nicholas wasn't a politician, he wasn't a soldier, he wasn't part of a relief organization. He was simply a young stockbroker from London who had come to Prague expecting a holiday. Yet, as he looked into the faces of those children, one question kept running through his mind. If nobody helps them, what happens next? He already knew the answer. If Germany occupied the rest of Czechoslovakia, many of those children would never have another chance to escape. Most people would have looked at the situation and wished someone would do something. Nicholas decided that someone would be him. There was just one problem. Nicholas had promised hundreds of parents he would save their children, but he had absolutely no idea how he was going to do it. To bring even one child to Britain, he needed a government approval, a foster family willing to open their home, and a £50 guarantee for each child. I mean, that was a considerable amount of money in 1939. It sounded almost impossible, but instead of focusing on everything that stood in his way, Nicholas simply started working. His hotel room became a rescue headquarters. The bed disappeared beneath stacks of paperwork. The desk was covered with photographs of children, passports, letters. Every day brought more desperate parents, hoping that their son or daughter might be given a chance to live. So many people came to him for help that the hallways were literally lined with desperate families. One by one, he wrote down each child's name, age, and family information. And before long, stacks of files covered his desk and the floor and his bed. Every folder represented a child. Every child represented parents who were placing their trust in a man they had only met moments before. Nicholas worked from early morning until late at night, writing letters to charities, churches, government officials, anyone who might help. He searched for foster families across Britain, filled out endless paperwork, and somehow kept track of hundreds of children whose futures depended on him. The work had to be exhausting, but Nicholas understood something that everyone else did too. Time was running out. While he was trying to arrange homes for these children, Adolf Hitler's army continued expanding across Europe. Nazi control over Czechoslovakia grew stronger by the week, and every new restriction made it harder to get children out of the country. That's why I love the opening of the story. Nicholas wasn't racing against paperwork, he was racing against history. Every foster family he found meant another child had a chance to live. Every passport he completed brought another family one step closer to hope. But Nicholas also knew that if he lost the race, even by a few days, it could cost hundreds of children their lives. Then at last, the first train was ready to leave. The The first children to leave Prague boarded the trains carrying little more than a suitcase and a name tag pinned to their coats. On the platforms, parents did everything they could to hide their fear. Mothers wiped away tears and straightened their children's collars one last time. Fathers forced reassuring smiles they didn't feel, hoping to make the goodbye just a little less frightening. A complete stranger has promised to save your child. You've only known him for a short time, and now you're being asked to trust him with the most precious person in your life? You don't know if you'll ever see your son or daughter again, but deep down you know that letting them leave may be the only chance they'll ever have. As the trains slowly pulled away, children waved from the windows until their parents disappeared from sight. Many believed they'd be reunited in a few weeks. Many hoped, but they quietly feared the truth. This wasn't just goodbye. It could be goodbye forever. The trains crossed Europe and reached the English Channel, where the children boarded ferries for England. Waiting on the other side were foster families holding cards with unfamiliar names ready to welcome children they had never met into their homes. In a matter of moments, complete strangers became mothers, brothers, fathers, sisters. One train arrived safely, then another, and then another. And with every successful journey, dozens more children escaped the growing danger. Month after month, Nicholas kept the operation going, and then by the end of summer of 1939, he had helped rescue 669 children. But Nicholas knew there were hundreds more still waiting. Another train was scheduled to leave Prague on September 1st, 1939. More than 250 children already had seats. Their paperwork was complete, their suitcases were packed, their parents had once again found the strength to say goodbye. Then history intervened. On September 1st, 1939, everything came to a halt. Germany invaded Poland and World War II had begun. Almost immediately, the borders closed. The trains stopped running and the rescue operation was over. The children who had already reached England were safe. But the more than 250 children waiting to board that final train never left Prague. Almost all of them were later murdered in the Holocaust. It's impossible to imagine the heartbreak Nicholas must have felt. He knew many of those children by name. He'd seen their photographs, read their paperwork, promised their parents he'd do everything he could to save them. And in the end, history moved faster than he could. For the rest of his life, Nicholas carried that heartbreak quietly. He never called himself a hero. After the war, he married, raised a family, built a successful career. He packed away all the documents from the rescue operation in an old scrapbook. Then he placed it in his attic, where it remained untouched for nearly 50 years. In 1988, Nicholas's wife, Greta, was cleaning out that attic when she discovered the scrapbook. Inside were hundreds of photographs, names, train schedules, letters from desperate parents, and official documents describing a rescue she had never heard about. Looking at Nicholas, she asked a simple question: what is all of this? That one question uncovered one of the greatest untold stories of World War II. Historians learned what Nicholas had done, and before long, the BBC invited him to attend the television program That's Life. Nicholas thought he was simply going to be another member of the audience. He took his seat in the audience, smiled politely, and listened as the host began telling the story of a young English stockbroker who had rescued hundreds of children before World War II. Nicholas never suspected the story was about him. Then the host turned to the audience and asked, "If anyone here owes their life to Nicholas Winton, would you please stand?" For just a moment, nothing happened. Then one person stood, then another and another. Nicholas slowly turned in his seat. Everywhere he looked, people were rising to their feet. Some were smiling through tears, others simply nodded at him and smiled. These weren't strangers applauding a hero. They were literally the little boys and girls he had rescued nearly 50 years earlier. They were now adults with families, children, and even grandchildren of their own. Nicholas sat speechless. He never expected recognition, and he certainly hadn't expected this. One after another, the people standing began sharing what their lives had become. As he listened, Nicholas realized something extraordinary. He hadn't just saved 669 children. He had made it possible for thousands of people to exist. Think about that for a moment. Every child he rescued had the chance to grow up, raise a family, watch the future generations come into the world. One ordinary decision made in 1938 had echoed across decades, changing lives that Nicholas would never even meet. I've thought about this story many times, and I think that's what makes it so powerful. Nicholas never set out to change history. He simply refused to walk away when he saw children who needed help. Instead of asking, "How can I save them all?" he asked, "How can I save one?" And then he saved another and another. Maybe that's how all great change begins. One person deciding to help one other person. This week, look for one person you can help. You may never know how far one act of kindness can reach. Until next time, remember, every ordinary person has an extraordinary story. I'm Amber Joy, and I'll see you in the next story.